I was student number 16 at what's now known as Coach U, which was one of the first two coaching schools in the world. I did have the privilege of helping to start the International Coaching Federation. I'm one of the first master credential coaches in the world. And that led to opportunities to do the books and everything else. So it really was a rags to riches story of, just my expectation was just, I hoped I could replace my waitressing income. I didn't have a big expectation. And then it just took off. I mean, by 1996, there were stories in Newsweek and all kinds of global press. And I was traveling to many places in the world to help spread the word about coaching. I came out to Stockholm, to Denmark, to Japan, to the UK, many different places to bring coaching to the world. And along the way was growing a family. And, it's been a great adventure, not all highs, there's been low dips and disappointments and whatever, but for the most part, I'm extremely fortunate and grateful for the opportunities that I've had. I mean, I feel like there's a technology to coaching. It's not technology in terms of online, but the way that we cause change in people or bring awareness in people, that made such an impact on me that I then became like someone who converts from smoking to non-smoking, and then they become a champion for non-smokers. Coaching changed my life. So I became a champion for coaching.
Yeah. Wow.
I just wanted other people to have the opportunity. And I operate with the motivation of everyone on the planet will be a coach, not that they will all be professional coaches, but I don't just coach the person who hires me. It impacts how they behave in their office, in their home, out in the community. So I know that it has a ripple effect. So that's why I say, coaching one person is transforming the world around them. So everyone on the planet will have these skills. And so there's a lot of work to be done to get to that day. So I'll still have a job for a while. Now I just feel like my purpose is to cause change, to make you think, to make you take action, to make you inspired in a way that you transform and change the world around you. So that's what keeps me going. This is a story that has to do with when I was on the Oprah Winfrey Show, who I think she has worldwide recognition in Oprah Winfrey. But when she had a show in the United States, it was everything to be on that show. It was a wonderful opportunity for an author. And I had my opportunity to be on that show. She came backstage afterwards, brought her producers, promised to have me on again. And over the course of 2 years, they would keep calling me, and then it wouldn't work out, and they'd call me, and then they had to change, and then, whatever. So it never happened. And I lost my way because, again, it became about if I'm on her show multiple times, that is a guarantee of selling millions of books, So I became very attached to the goal. And it again became like show business, became very detrimental to my well-being. And so the lesson was get back to my purpose, because I could fulfill my purpose every day, not just waiting for Oprah to make the phone ring and invite me back. Yeah. So someday I'll have to tell her that story if I ever do get to meet her again. Just what I was said about purpose, get back to living. You can live your purpose every day in small ways and win. It doesn't have to be huge. I remember one time speaking about purpose at a conference, and a woman asked a question, and she said, I want to have a Mother Teresa level of purpose. And Mother Teresa herself said, we don't do great things. We do small things with great love. So she didn't plan to be a saint one day. She just saw a sick person dying on the street, and that was unacceptable to her.
Yeah.
So, so I try to remind people it's not the big things, it's the small things that may or may not add up to a big thing, but that's not why you do it.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Life and Leadership Connected podcast. I'm so happy that you're here. My name is David Dalleno Cruz and I am your host. In this podcast, we talk about life purpose, or why that gives us meaning and direction for what we do in life. We talk about life and leadership. What gives us life? And how do we become and continue to be good leaders with good influence on other people? How do we combine life and leadership in a healthy and sustainable way? These are questions we will discuss in this podcast. I am your host and coach, David Daleno Cruz. Let's dive right into this episode. Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Life and Leadership Connected podcast. Today I interview Laura Berman Foltgang. Laura Berman Foltgang. Do I pronounce your name right?
Yeah, that'll do. Laura Berman Fortgang, Americanized.
Berman, is there some German?
It was originally Polish.
Polish.
Fortgang has German roots, Austrian roots.
Interesting. Okay, as I usually do, I will give a presentation of who Laura is, and she has done a lot of things. She has 25 plus years of experience as a prominent career and business coach, and she has tens of thousands of coaching hours performed. Some of her corporate clients she had is, for example, McDonald's, Burger King, Johnson & Johnson, Eli Lilly, and Novartis, and some clients from the public sector are NASA, Army Corps of Engineers, the World Bank, the City of Miami Beach. And she was one of the first coaches in the US to go through a formal training program. Subsequently, after that, she helped to start the International Coaching Federation. She is the president and owner of a company called Intercoach Incorporated, Now What Coaching. And she's a founder and owner and operator of a full-service coaching based on Montclair in New Jersey. She is a workshop facilitator, a mentor, and also an interfaith minister. And she is a performer. And not the least, she is a best-selling author in 13 languages with now 6 published books. And one of the books has been on Reuters' best-selling list, and that book is titled Take Yourself to the Top. Other book titles are, for example, Now What? 90 Days to a New Life Direction, The Prosperity Plan, 10 Steps to Beating Odds and Creating Extraordinary Wealth, The Little Book on Meaning, and Living Your Best Life, How to Discover Your Life Blueprints for Success. And she's a sought-after speaker and TV personality, and she has been on shows like Oprah and all national morning shows. But Laura has a rags to riches story also. There's a story behind all this. After she followed her parents' requirement of getting a real degree, she moved on and followed her dream, and she became a Broadway musical theater star at 22 years of age. During that time, she had several jobs for supplement income, waitressing, show modeling, various temperate work, and other filling types of work, and she changed work a lot. By 27, she had some despair. She had an ultimate dream. She wondered if she would ever reach that dream. For a couple of years after that, she made the biggest change of her life, and she changed the way she thought. She changed her mind. And now Laura is a best-selling author and speaker both nationally across the US and also internationally on several continents. And one of her TED Talks has had over 2 million views. Now she lives her ultimate dream, which is impacting people's thinking, feelings, and behaviors in organizations as Johnson & Johnson, Novartis, Eli Lilly, YUM brands, McDonald's, Burger King, the World Bank, and Army Corps of Engineers. Her work revolves around guiding career clarity seekers and mentoring coaches and consultants to establish renowned reputations. She has raised 3 children, teenage twins, in college. One of them is home. And she has 1 husband, and they have been married for 27 years. And now she lives in New Jersey in the United States of America. So again, welcome to the podcast, Laura.
Thank you, David. Thanks for having me.
Is that a correct description of you?
Yes, for the most part. I think everyone's aged a little bit since all the kids are in their 20s. I've been married 30 years. I have to update that.
Yeah.
But no, that's accurate. That's the journey.
Wonderful, wonderful. Can you tell us a bit in your own words, your story? What led you up to the point where you are today so we can understand you a bit better?
Sure. I mean, the moments of despair in my 20s, I had really worked very hard to make the dream come true. The dream was to be on Broadway and musicals and performing. And I had some success. I had reasonable success, but I just looked ahead and saw it could still be a long journey. And I didn't want to be almost 40 years old and still living the same lifestyle, which was, traveling, living out of a suitcase, um, never knowing where the next job was coming from. And now I'm an entrepreneur. It's kind of the same, but, but, I just, could not believe that my effort did not make the dream come true. So I really was very lost. But I found my way, and I listened to my intuition, and my intuition told me to call an old acting mentor of mine. And that mentor had become a coach. And I knew intuitively that he had a new direction for me, like he had the answer to what was next for me. And I became a client, and I started teaching presentation skills in corporations because it just made sense as an actor to teach people how to be on stage. But I quickly realized that I was doing more than just telling people what to say or how to hold their hands or how to project their voice. And I realized I wanted to become a coach and work with people more deeply. So I was student number 16 at what's now known as Coach U, which was one of the first two coaching schools in the world. I did have the privilege of helping to start the International Coaching Federation. I'm one of the first master credential coaches in the world. And that led to opportunities to do the books and everything else. So it really was a rags to riches story of, just my expectation was just, I hoped I could replace my waitressing income. I didn't have a big expectation. And then it just took off. I mean, by 1996, there were stories in Newsweek and all kinds of global press, and I was traveling to many places in the world to help spread the word about coaching. I came out to Stockholm, to Denmark, to Japan, to the UK, many different places to bring coaching to the world. And along the way was growing a family. And, it's been a great adventure, not all highs, there's been low dips and disappointments and whatever, but for the most part, I'm extremely fortunate and grateful for the opportunities that I've had.
Wow. And you had a dream to become a Broadway musical theater star when you were little or younger. Where did that dream come from?
When I was younger, my parents exposed us to doing theater. I actually lived in Venezuela when I was a kid, but we were part of the expat community and English speaking theater and children's theater. So I don't remember an exact moment, except that when I saw my first Broadway show, which was A Chorus Line. Was it A Chorus Line? No, Pippin was my first Broadway show. A Chorus Line was my second Broadway show. And then I saw Annie when I was, maybe 12 years old. And that's when I knew I wanted to do that. I wanted to do what they were doing. And truthfully, I did not have the support of my parents. They didn't believe in paying for lessons, dance lessons, voice lessons. By 14, I had gotten jobs and I started paying for those things myself. And my parents did not want me to be studying theater in university, so I was not allowed to do that. But I did every show that you could do at university without being in the theater program. And so by the time I graduated with a degree in communications, I had told my parents, well, I did what you wanted me to do. Thank you for my education. Now I'm going to New York and I'm going to give this a try. So, and it's funny because my three children are kind of following in my footsteps, all interested in the arts. And, we would not have chosen that for them either. But unlike my parents, if they showed an interest, we encouraged them. We helped them get the lessons that they needed and help them have the opportunities that they wanted. And my son, actually, my oldest son, is now a drummer on Broadway. He
Wow.
plays for Broadway shows.
Wow, wonderful.
Yes. So one of us made it to Broadway.
Yeah. You succeeded with this at age 22, you said. And during those 5 years, you had different jobs and so on. What was your biggest joy and your biggest challenge during those time?
My biggest joy was the opportunities that I had to perform and to travel and to, see things and have adventures.
Mm.
The challenge was the peaks and valleys of that, the terrible moments when you're rejected and you don't know why. You
Yeah.
never get feedback, you never know how to grow or how to change. It's just no.
Yeah.
So left to your own imagination, as many actors do, you can get very, you know, f- turn it inward and get very depressed about it. So that it was not good for my mental health to be in that business. So
Yeah.
that was part of why I made the change as well. So the challenge was just, operating in a vacuum. No one gave you feedback. You just had to take the rejection time and time again.
Yeah. And then you had an ultimate dream, you said. You wanted to impact people's thinking, feeling, and behavior. And I heard in another podcast you spoke about that you took some coaching lessons, and you mentioned it briefly before, and that changed your life. Can you explain a bit that transformation and how that changed you and you changed your
Yeah, I mean, as
situation?
a client, I was a client first before I became a coach. So as a client, I discovered what I was, really good at, which was helping people find themselves really. And I also made the decision to marry my boyfriend, my partner. And that I made that decision with my coach. My coach was at my wedding.
Wow.
So my first coach was instrumental in me changing my life and meeting up with I feel like there's a technology to coaching. It's not technology in terms of online, but the way that we cause change in people or bring awareness in people, that made such an impact on me that I then became like someone who converts from smoking to non-smoking, and then they become a champion for non-smokers. Coaching changed my life. So I became a champion for coaching.
Yeah. Wow.
I just wanted other people to have the opportunity. And I operate with the motivation of everyone on the planet will be a coach, not that they will all be professional coaches, but I don't just coach the person who hires me. It impacts how they behave in their office, in their home, out in the community. So I know that it has a ripple effect. So that's why I say, coaching one person is transforming the world around them. So everyone on the planet will have these skills. And so there's a lot of work to be done to get to that day. So I'll still have a job for a while.
Yeah, that's good. And then you became a best-selling author. I wonder, where did that inspiration for writing come from? Did you have that earlier, or how did that
No,
appear?
I was a terrible student when it came to reading and writing. I couldn't stand reading. I couldn't stand writing. But again, my intuition, when I started coaching, I wrote a newsletter, I think once a month. And back then we were not putting it out over the internet. We were mailing it to, printing it out and mailing it to clients and to other people. And I said, my intuition said, learn how to write a newsletter, because a newsletter can become a chapter, and and many chapters can become a book. So I started allowing myself to write and to learn how to write. And I wrote down some New Year's resolutions one year to write a book, even though I had no real intention of doing it. I didn't know how you would do it. I didn't know how you get a book published. And by the end of that year, I had been in a magazine story in Money Magazine in the United States that brought in 500 incoming calls of people who wanted to work with me. It exploded my business. And among those 500 calls were 3 publishers. And that's how I ended up getting a book contract.
Wow, wow. I usually ask 4 questions to everybody in the podcast, and I will ask you the first one here. What gives you purpose, meaning in life? What is your why, your purpose, your motivation for what you do? And I will develop that question a little bit. Can you describe for us what your life purpose was during your younger years and before your breakthrough as a best-selling author, and compare that to what your life purpose is today?
Sure. I mean, my why is my family. Like
Mm,
I have three children and my husband, and everything I do because I want to be a better parent, a better provider in my family, and
mm,
just that's my why. But when it comes to purpose,
mm,
um, I didn't feel like I really had a purpose that I was aware of before I became a coach. And it was 10 years after I left show business that I really realized why I had wanted to be an actor. And why I wanted to be an actor was because I know the impact that theater can make. When you sit in the theater and you watch characters go through something difficult, you might be inspired to take care of something difficult in your
mm,
life.
mm,
Or you might just be entertained and be transformed by forgetting your troubles for a day.
yeah.
So I knew that the impact that theater made really helped people change themselves. And it seeing that through line go into coaching, I in retrospect, in hindsight, saw what my purpose was behind being an actor as well.
Mm, mm,
And maybe if I'd had awareness of that purpose when I was an actor, I might have handled the highs and lows better, because I had a reason other than my own
mm.
self-worth
Yeah,
at
yeah,
hand. But I have no regrets. I've occasionally get chances to perform, so I don't miss it. I also get to do a lot of speaking, which is performance,
yeah,
public speaker.
yeah,
So I feel like I found the perfect avenue for bringing my purpose to the world, which now I just feel like my purpose is to cause change, to make you
mm,
think, to make you take action, to make you inspired in a way that you transform and change the world around you. So
yeah,
that's what keeps me going.
yeah. Great. I wonder, is there any life lesson concerning life purpose that you have learned and that maybe you want to share with us today?
Yeah, I think that this is a story that has to do with when I was on the Oprah Winfrey show, who I think she has worldwide recognition in Oprah Winfrey.
Mm,
But
yeah.
when she had a show in the United States, it was everything to be on that show. It was a wonderful opportunity for an author. And I had my opportunity to be on that show. She came backstage afterwards, brought her producers, promised to have me on again. And over the course of 2 years, they would keep calling me, and then it wouldn't work out. And they'd call me, and then they had to change, and then, whatever. So it never happened.
Mm,
And I lost my way because, again, it became about if I'm on her show multiple times, that is a guarantee of selling millions of books. So I became very attached to the goal.
mm,
And it again became like show business, became very detrimental to my well-being. And so the lesson was get back to my purpose, like get back to my purpose, because I could fulfill my purpose every day, not just waiting for Oprah to make the phone ring and invite me back.
yeah,
So someday I'll have to tell her that story if I ever do get to meet her again.
yeah. Wow, that's good. And today you're a leader and you live your ultimate dream to be able to influence people thinking and feeling and behavior. As you said, you're an author, you're a speaker nationally, internationally, career and business coach. And you described that it was a change of your thinking, of your mind that caused this next break through you in life. Can you maybe share three thoughts or thinking patterns that made all the difference in the transformation that you went through?
Yeah, I mean, this is still a work in progress. I this is ongoing, but I think there's a saying, don't believe everything that you think. So I abide by that. Just because your mind says you're not good enough doesn't mean you're not good enough, or your mind gives you some other negative thought doesn't mean you have to obey that. So that's one. Another one is something that I learned from A Course in Miracles, which is a psycho-spiritual self-study course, that there's really only two thoughts. We only have two thoughts, fear or love. Everything's either coming from fear or coming from love and self. So that is a guiding principle for me.
Mm,
So that's two. Let's see if I can think of a third one. And a third one would be just what I was said about purpose. Like, get back to living. You can live your purpose every day in small ways and win. It doesn't have to be huge. I remember one time speaking about purpose at a conference, and a woman asked a question, and she said, I want to have a Mother Teresa level of purpose. And Mother Teresa herself said, we don't do great things. We do small things with great love. So she didn't plan to be a saint one day. She just saw a sick person dying on the street, and that was unacceptable to her.
Yeah.
So, so I try to remind people it's not the big things, it's the small things that may or may not add up to a big thing, but that's not why you do it.
Great. Thank you. We will take a short break here for about 30 seconds, and we'll be back very soon. Dear viewers and listeners, I hope you like this podcast. Do you feel stuck in ways you don't like? Do you want to change but don't know how? Coaching can change all that. It can be a start on a journey where you grow and develop beyond what you thought was possible for you. If you want this change, go to lifeleadershipconnected.com, lifeleadershipconnected.com, and sign up for a free consultation call. Or grab my free guide, Unlock the Overlooked Path to Fulfillment, the one thing blocking your purpose and how to remove it. You find it in my LinkedIn page, David Dahlender Cruz. Start your journey of transformation today. I am your life and leadership coach, David Dahlender Cruz. Hello and welcome back to the Life and Leadership Connected podcast. Today I interview Laura Beerman Forkang, and I will continue with the questions here. The second question I ask everybody in the podcast is like this. Tell me about your leadership of yourself and others, and about some challenges and milestones that have shaped you to the person you are today, and the most important lesson you've learned as a leader. We've heard a bit about the milestones and maybe also some challenges, but what would you say are the most important lessons you've learned as a leader?
Well, my leadership tends to occur out of enthusiasm. I see a need, or I see something that needs to change, or I see something that has to happen. So I have a contagious enthusiasm that people then want to join the cause. But the biggest lesson for me is to delegate, that it doesn't have to all be up to me, and that empowering other leaders to join and participate is the piece that I'm working on. It's not that I have to do everything, but I forget to bring people into it and let them do part of it too. They always tend to look at me, and I'm like, well, it's not going to happen unless we all do it. So empower, developing other leaders is a piece of leadership. So that's still the muscle I'm working on.
Yeah. Is there some strong leadership challenges that you had during your career so far that you can share with us?
I don't, not what particular story doesn't come to mind, but I decided here in the US, we've had in very interesting political times.
Yeah.
So I ran for public office suddenly in 2017 and in 2019. I decided to run for state assembly, which is our state government, as a newcomer, with no experience raising money, because our elections are not federally funded, they're individually funded. So I needed to raise money. I needed to run a campaign. I needed to learn the policies, and experiencing I'm trying to look for polite words. The ugly side of politics was, I was so naive. I was so enthusiastic and wide-eyed, and wanted to cause change and wanted to do good. And I found it very difficult to deal with the ugliness of politics. Not so much what people said about me, because I really didn't care, but it was more how unfair and how mean people could be to get what they wanted. And that was, that was very disappointing, but a great growth experience as well.
Yeah. Thank you. What would you say are the 3 best leadership lessons you've learned and that you would like to give, for example, to especially a young professional or inspiring leader who want to see a transformation in their lives?
Yeah, I can't worry about being popular. Sometimes you have to do things that are not popular. You can't always be friends with the people you lead. That's one lesson. The second is that we don't measure lead. This is a Jack Welch quote, I believe. We don't measure a leader by how many followers they have, but by how many leaders they've created. So that's lesson number 2. And lesson number 3 is probably don't take anything personally.
That's good. In your coaching practice, Laura, and in your experience, what are some of the most common problems, again, young professionals struggle with today and seek help for when they seek help from you and so on?
Yes, well, often a young leader has become a leader because they were good at their job. Maybe they were in sales and then they want to make them a sales manager, or they were in marketing, now they've made them the marketing director, or they were an engineer and now they're supervising other people. So it's not a given that just because you did your job well, you're going to be able to lead other people. It becomes a whole other job. So that in the emerging leader category, that's one scenario that comes up a lot is, how do you deal with having to manage the people that you used to be colleagues with?
Yeah.
So that's a big one. Also, I work with C-suite executives, and again, on a different level, they have to develop leaders. They're at that place where they need to be able to delegate and have a succession plan or whatever the case may be. So dealing with communication and being the leader that they want to be even at the top levels of leadership.
Yeah.
That's a scenario. And then for everybody, it's having a quality of life while having a demanding job.
Yeah.
So those are 3 scenarios that come up a lot.
Yeah. Great. What are some steps that you use in your coaching practice to help people find their passions and purpose?
Sure. Well, I have a very unusual way of helping people do that. Like I do a lot of career coaching and career transition coaching, career reinvention, and I don't look at people's CV. I don't look at their resume and their CV because that just gives me a business case, a chronological business case for doing something similar.
Yeah.
So I have them do a life story process for me. And all this is in my book, Now What? 90 Days to a New Life Direction.
Yeah.
And in that book, I do a life story process that helps people see the clues from their past that helps them figure out what their future strengths will be.
Yeah. I'll come to the third question here that I ask everybody in the podcast. Tell me about what gives you life within the area of focus that you've chosen to spend most of your time in your life. And how do you keep your energy at high level day by day, Laura?
Every day I have to start new. Every day has to start fresh, looking at my schedule, seeing who's on there, working with ideal clients, working with clients that give me as much as energy as I give them.
Yeah.
And also just staying on purpose, remembering what the purpose is brings everything back to light. So it, that way it doesn't ever become a job.
No.
You keep the freshness in it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of variety in what I do. There's different clients coming through every 6 months. There's different programs that I offer, different opportunities to speak. So I think the variety goes a long way to keeping it alive as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Tell me how you successfully combine your role as a leader of yourself and other people and your life as a healthy human being. What challenges and success factors? How do you keep your healthy work-life balance between family and other important things that you have to do, Laura?
For some reason, this one's never been a problem for me. I'm able to turn, say it's 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, I'm done and not look at stuff. I've been fortunate enough to be able to put team members around me so I don't have to do all the work. I do delegate.
Yeah.
And I also make time for hobbies. I collect antique furniture and then refurbish it. I either bring it back to life or I paint it and make it something different. So I do that for fun and to relax. So part of why I love doing what I do is because of the flexibility, and I take advantage of that flexibility.
Mm.
You know, and I know for a lot of people who work corporately, it's not as easy to do that. And in the United States, we don't value vacations enough. We don't take holidays properly. And part of that is because the workload is just so huge. So as someone who's an entrepreneur and self-employed, that's part of why we take the risks that we do in not having the steady income all the time, or not always knowing if there's going to be steady income. The trade-off is the flexibility.
Yeah, good. Is there anything we missed to talk about in this podcast, Laura, that you would like to bring up as well?
No, just if anyone who's listening has not had the opportunity to work with a coach, I highly recommend you go to the coachfederation.org website and find yourself a coach anywhere in the world and give it a try. Yeah. It'll change your life. I always say danger, it will change your life. Some people think they want to change their life, but then when they really do, it's scary.
Yeah. And if people want to get in contact with you and learn more from you, Laura, where can they go then?
The easiest thing is to Google Laura Berman Fortgang, because that's my website name, and you'll find me, Laura Berman Fortgang.
Yeah. Okay, great. Do you have any last words that you want to share with the listeners before we end the podcast?
The best thing you can do is to be in touch with your why, be in touch with your purpose, and let that refresh you every day, because every day can be different on your way to living that purpose. And it doesn't mean everyone has to be Mother Teresa. Like I said, we don't do big things. We do small things with great love.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, it's been a pleasure to talk to you, Laura, and learn more from you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, viewers and listeners, my name is David Daleno Cruz, and this is the Life and Leadership Connected podcast. We empower your journey. Thank you for listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or elsewhere, or watching on YouTube. And welcome back when we release our next episode. And until then, bye-bye.